All right, this is a continuation of 5.3, and when I left off, I just realized a mistake. I did not simplify this last fraction. Both the top and the bottom are also divisible by 3, so the final answer on this one should be 1 and 4/11. So just make that correction in your notes. So now we're going to start doing operations with fractions. We start with multiplication and division because those are the easiest, and then we go into addition and subtraction. So with multiplying and dividing, we're simply going to multiply across the numerators, multiply across with the denominators, and then of course see if we can simplify it when we do this. Now there are some shortcuts, and I'll show you those shortcuts when I get to them, that we can look on diagonals so that we don't have such large numbers to look at. So when I do this, we're going to simply just take these first couple problems, and I'm going to take 3 times 7, and that gives me 21, and 5 times 8, which gives me 40. And I can't simplify that any further, so that would be my final answer. Now in this next one, I could take 15 times 22 and get 330, and then take 2 times 3 and get 6, and then try to reduce it. But there is an easier way to do this. You can simplify as you go. 3 goes into 3 one time, and 3 goes into 15 5 times. And 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 22 11 times. So now I have 5 times 11, which is 55, all over 1 times 1, which would just be 55. And if I took 330 and I divided it by 6, I would get 55. So you just want to make sure that whatever way you do it, that your fraction is always in simplest form. Now this one, what I would be careful is, you can just recognize that a negative times a negative is positive, or you can rewrite it so that you have -5 on top over 7 times -14 on the bottom over 15. And I'm going to use this because I have numbers that I recognize that will simplify. -5 goes into, or 5 goes into -5 and leaves -1. 5 goes into 15 and leaves 3. 7 goes into 7 and leaves 1. And 7 goes into -14 and leaves -2. So now I have -1 times -2, which is 2, and 1 times 3, which is 3. Okay, so again, make it easier on yourself. I mean, yes, I could have done 5 times 14. -5 times -14 would have been positive 70. And then I could have done 7 times 15, and that would have been 105. And then I could have reduced it by simplifying. Okay. Now, division of fractions, this is the shortcut. We always keep the first fraction, change the multiplication to division, and flip the second fraction over. And that flip is what we call a reciprocal, okay? So there is a lazy man way to do this, or you can rewrite the problem. If you're rewriting the problem, you would take 3/8, leave that fraction alone. You would change the division to multiplication, and then you would flip the second fraction over. And then it becomes a multiplication problem like we're familiar with. So 3 times 7 is 21. 8 times 5 is 40. Now the lazy man way looks like this. I would just do this. I would rewrite that, and then I would scribble this out. So whichever way you're comfortable with, making sure you don't lose signs, then do it that way. Okay, we're going to get a little bit more complicated by adding a few more multiplication and divisions in there. So this one I would write -2/9. I just put the negative number always on the top number. change the division to multiplication, flip the second fraction over. And so negative 2 times 13 is negative 26. 9 times 3 is positive 27. And that's as far as I can do, okay? Now they've indicated some parentheses. I've got division inside the parentheses, so I know I'm going to keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, flip the second fraction over, and then I recognize that 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom makes those cancel out and makes 1. So now I've got 5/7. That takes care of the parentheses. Then multiply by 1/7. And so 5 times 1 is 5, and 7 times 7 is 49. Okay, you can only cancel when one number is on the top and one number is in the bottom. Please don't cancel numbers that are on the same side of the fraction bar. So now we have, again, another set of parentheses. This one is multiplication, so there's nothing to change. I'm going to look and see I can't do anything on the diagonals. So 5 times 7 is 35. 6 times 8 is 48. That's my first fraction. I change the division to multiplication, and I flip the second fraction over. And so 35 times 7 gives me 245, and 48 times 1 is 48. And unless they ask you specifically to make that a mixed number, I would just leave it, okay? And we can't reduce that any further. So now we have this next one. Keep the first, change to multiplication, and flip the second fraction over. And so 11 times 11 is 121, and 18 times 18 is 324. And that's all I can do, okay? Now, as they add more steps, just be careful that you don't make sign mistakes, don't make multiplication mistakes, don't make flipping over mistakes, okay? So I'm going to do the brackets first, and inside the brackets, it is multiplication. So I'm going to put the negative sign with the 2. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, and 5 times 8 is 40. I could have reduced on that, so let's go ahead and reduce that so I don't have such big numbers. So now I'm going to divide by 2, and so that becomes negative 3 over 20, okay? And then I'm going to change that to multiplication, and then I'm going to flip the second fraction over. Now, I tend to always put the negative sign with the top number so that I don't lose it, okay? I'm going to look at these diagonals, and I do see something that I can simplify. 4 goes into 16, and that means negative 4. 4 goes into 20, and that leaves 5. So now I've got negative 3 times negative 4, which is positive 12, and 5 times 5, which is 25. Okay, so that ends the multiplication and division. I'm going to create another video for addition and subtraction of fractions.